Mabuhay, Kamustika. Welcome. How are you? This is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. I'm getting so excited about our upcoming trip to the Philippines that I'm actually hearing rooster sounds in my head. It's just on my mind because it's always a big deal, and you look forward to it. It's kind of a grind to go to the Philippines. We're going to be going for a month. And so it's a good opportunity to see my wife's family, see the Philippines, where we want to retire one of these days, maybe 4 or 5 years. I like to get to 62. My mother lives with us, so we're not going to be going anywhere as long as she's alive. And she's concerned that we're just going to take off and leave her, but that's that's not going to happen. So, um, but yeah, it's coming up. Time goes by so fast. I was there in middle of 2018 with my wife. She was just there in January of this year to get our house all stocked up with furniture and everything. So now we're going to go and live in it later on this year over the holidays, which is something she wants me to see. So I'm looking forward very much to that. Hope everybody is well tonight. Really would like to open this up to anybody and what they want to talk about. Although, for sure, I want to go over some comments that I got um, because I think they can generate some legitimate talking points, and so I want to do that. And by the way, I do get positive comments on my videos, and I'm very grateful for that. And I'm very grateful for the people that are with me and and watching Love Beyond the Sea. This is a Filipina-friendly pro-marriage channel for foreigners looking to marry a Filipina, just like I did at one time in my life about 4 years ago. Kind of had to give up looking anywhere else around here, the United States. I just wasn't getting anywhere, and I just had to do something outside of the norm, outside of the box, outside my comfort zone. So I decided to try an online dating site, try to find a Filipina to marry, and it all happened so fast. It's hard to even go back and put the pieces together because it happened so quickly. It was like, okay, this isn't working. I don't think it's going to work. I got to do something. Philippines, okay, let's try that. And connected with somebody pretty quickly. We got married in less than 8 weeks. Yes, married in less than 8 weeks. So we've been together. I mean, we've known each other for, I don't know, roughly 4 years and 2 months, and we've been married for 4 years there. So, Phil's to Phoenix, good morning. Magandang umaga. And I hope you don't need your handy wrench tonight, John. And I hope you're doing well in the Philippines. And I hope that your wife is going to be there soon. I know she'll be thrilled to see her family, just like my wife will be thrilled to see her family. And I've been keeping up with your activity out there on Facebook. Phil's to Phoenix is just got a scooter. I'm sure you'll be driving around there too on that scooter. Um, Mayangabi or Magadangabi. Um, it is for you. For me, yeah. For you, it's Imaga. For me, it's gonna be hi JBud 5000. Something original process you have done different now that you're more experienced. Leave it up to JBud to come up with a salient question here. So I will attempt to answer that, JBud. Something in the original process you have done different now that you're more experienced. One of the things I might have done differently is because I've done some videos, JBud, on asking questions. I would do that. I didn't do that in the original process. Now I've got videos, 3 videos out, different stages. You just meet a Filipina, nothing serious, just met her, what to ask. And then later on, a little bit more serious, try to gauge compatibility. And then also when you get more serious, okay, now what are you going to ask? And so there's questions there that I think would have been nice to know had I thought about all that. But, as much as I kind of like to be organized and stay on top of things, once we started talking, we just started talking, and it went from there, and it was going well. So, I mean, I might have wanted to ask her more questions about her personality, about how she responds to different things, maybe what her goals were when she was growing up, um, and maybe some of these things came out in time. But um, since it's gone well, Jay Budd, it's hard for me to really point something out. If there was something glaring that I'm kicking myself for, why didn't I think of that? Come to think of it, I should have done this. There really hasn't been anything like that. I mean, by 18 days, it felt like 3 months. I really did not know it was only 18 days when I decided to propose to her, because we were talking so much. And I guess the time was going by fast in one sense. In another sense, it wasn't, because, I was enjoying talking to her. We talked a lot. So, at some point, it's like, okay, we need to naturally graduate to something else. And for me, that was obviously going down to see her, but I didn't have any intention to go down and see her, in the middle of the year, and then maybe 6 months later, and 6 months later, and then get serious about her. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I've been waiting a long, long time. I was very much chomping at the bit. I felt like, I knew enough to marry her and go from there. I had good support system, namely my pastor, who I can still go to today if I'm stuck on something. I feel like, I need somebody to speak some reason into me. And that's very important. I don't know if my wife does that. A little bit dizzy here, but she should have a woman in her life that she trusts and can go to. But she's really private, so I don't know if she does that or not. But we all need advice, and so whatever I can learn, I want to share here. But as far as regretting something maybe in the process I would have done differently, not really, Jay Budd. I mean, went down there. We got started paperwork before I met her with an agent to kind of speed things up. Um, Went down there, met her. There was no indication, when I saw her that um, that I had made a mistake, or there was always time to back out. We weren't married yet. I went there to meet her and marry her. She was, running around doing all these plans, wanting to make things just right, which she did, and no red flags. We're still trying to get to know each other. That's kind of a fun process too, as long as there's no skeletons that you have to deal with. So I guess for me, I just didn't feel like I wouldn't feel like I'd have to change anything. But that's a very thoughtful, insightful question. The growing stages from year 1 to year 4, for all the singles who haven't a clue about discovery and cooperation. Growing stages from year 1 to year 4. Well, from year 1, you're kind of feeling each other out. You're feeling out what gets on each other's nerves. You have good intentions, of course. But, until you're married and you've got somebody that, you feel like you have to work things out, you can get away with some bad habits, some bad choices of how to handle things, but that's all going to become fleshed out in the first year or two. And you should be enthusiastic and excited about it. You should be reasonably confident about what you're doing when you go into it. But sooner or later, reality is going to do that. And don't be alarmed by that. There's going to be a lot of learning early on. I would anticipate that by year 4 there should be less um, arguments over stuff. By year 3 and 4, I think the first 2 years, like one of my Philippine sponsors said, you're going to be in the getting to know each other stage for 2 years, the first 2 years, and just be very patient. And so I took that to heart, and he was right. You discover the stupid things that upset you, that at this point in time, both of us, I can tell, have learned from the first couple of years. You try to assert yourself a little bit when you're the husband and say, okay, I'm kind of in charge. I want to lead. I want to act like I'm in charge. I want to act like I'm competent. And your Filipino wife might feel like doing the same. She may feel like she's got something to prove. She's not this weak Filipina. She's got skills. She's got strengths, and it's an adjustment process. I think Phil's to Phoenix. John could answer this question too. Growing stages from year 1 to year 4 for all the singles who haven't a clue about discovery and cooperation. You have to work as a team, and if you don't, then you're just going to be needlessly at odds with each other. And so in that first 4 years, I would say you learn what you can do and what you can't, what she responds to and what she doesn't. And everybody's different. You're really discovering each other in those first 2 years. You might have spent a year or two dating each other, and then you got married. Then you're not going to see each other for a while unless you're actually in the Philippines. So, when she's with you, that's when you can get on each other's nerves, but that's also when you can, hug her, kiss her, tell her you love her, sit down, listen to whatever she's going through, her difficulties here in a new country, and, be patient with her, because, she's coming to see her fiance or her husband. But personally, I just can't see a Filipina getting here and just leaving the past behind, leaving all her Facebook experience and connections with friends and family behind. That's why I've done some videos on social media. And you may not be used to somebody, well, anymore. Women in the 30s, 40s, 50s here are on social media too. A Filipina probably will. One thing I'd say to you, to anyone, is be patient with her. Let her adapt at her own pace. Don't try to take the Philippines out of the Filipina. She's going to want to communicate with siblings, parents, children, if they've got nieces and nephews, and you want to allow her to do that, because I think that's the long run. It's to your benefit to embrace her family. If you don't know, family is extremely important in the Philippines, and it's very important to my wife. And I like to ask her questions about, how's Papa doing, Mama doing, how the children, how they doing in school, is everybody healthy, things like that, because I care. I went to the trouble of memorizing everybody's name, before we got married. Now I know, even if I don't think about their names, I still know because I've thought about them and we've talked about them so many times. So it's kind of like a fantasy early on, and you're so proud of her and yourself, and you're happy, you want to tell the world, show the world what you've got. But it's not a fairy tale. Marriage is tough. It's hard work. That's why I want to talk about some things maybe you don't see in other channels, because I anticipate that it's going to be difficult. I want people to be ready for that, and not shocked by it. They've heard Filipinas make great wives, and they certainly can. But we both have our ways, and being selfish isn't going to help. And learning to be tolerant of things, and forgiving and unselfish, you really need to do that. And you'll find out early on, um, first year or two, about that. And John says year one was a challenge, learning about each other's culture and habits. Yeah, you just have to be together. I mean, you can communicate for 3 or 4 years, like some people do, and maybe visit once or twice. But that's the easy part. That's the easy part. Um, Sparks are not as likely to fly because there's not as much at stake in those situations. Year two is better, and we had learned the major issues and how to deal with them. Yeah, and John, you probably discovered some things that you weren't really planning on were going to be issues, and then some things maybe you thought you would need to deal with. Really wasn't that big of a deal. 3 and 4 have been much smoother. I agree, and there was a time, I don't know, somewhere in the 2+ year mark, where we were both thinking at the same time. John, maybe you can relate to this. We're both thinking, hon, we really haven't had an argument for a while. Knock on wood, but we haven't had an argument for a while. And I don't know, maybe a week later, something came up. But the point was that um, we had learned to kind of space these things out. And I don't think it was just circumstantial. I think it was because we were both kind of learning how to fit together as a cohesive unit, and how to have harmony. Neither one of us likes it when we are upset when we go to bed. And I'm sure it upsets my wife. I know it doubles any stress I have the next day, because I'm worried about it. It's like, yeah, I wish we could have dealt with this, at night. Sometimes you can't. And then, it's like, well, I can't wait to see her so we can talk this through, because I want to get it over with. And we do. I can't remember the last time my wife even came close to, tempo, she says it's pronounced, I think, the silent treatment. And I might have got a little of that early on, but nothing more than half a day or something like that. In fact, she would just tell me, hon, I don't want to talk right now. Just leave me alone for a while. I'll be fine. I'll be fine, really. I just, need some time to myself. So she was mature enough to tell me that. And so we, I guess by now I should know. 3 years together, 4 years married. What upsets her, and if she's upset, what I need to do to calm her down. And that's the good thing. The bad thing is you're gonna have some tough times early on. But the good thing is when you can, not overreact and handle those situations well, it does pay off later. It does pay off. Good question, Jay Bud, as always. Um, how is your? Oh, hi, Michael and Heidi. Very glad to have you here tonight as well. How was your wait during the CR1 process? Was it difficult on your relationship? Did you go back to visit Isa during the wait? I did not go back to visit her. I thought about having her come over here, maybe halfway through. Number one, to meet my mother. Number two, to kind of see her new environment, what it's like. Kind of get a little bit of the rust off early. But my visa agent said, yeah, not even worth bothering. She's probably not going to be allowed to. And I didn't want to spend the expense to go over there. So I just said, okay, well, we got started on this process is a little bit before I even left. to make things easier. So I got my exit stamp from the Philippines and was off and running with my agent, paying for expenses, as many expenses as I could ahead of time, having him, double check the paperwork and my wife's paperwork. He did a great job. That was well worth it. So really, from the time I got my notice from wherever it is, saying that they got my um, paperwork petition, that was like June 3rd, and then something like that. And then I got back on May 22nd. So that didn't take long for them to say, okay, we have it, it's here. And then 6 months later, I think December 1st or so, she had her interview. And then we waited till January 11th before she came. So that went pretty quickly. Now I have heard it's taking longer these days, and maybe the immigration situation has to do with that. But at that time, 4 years ago, 7, 8 months was entirely possible. So no, I didn't go back. How was your wait? The wait wasn't too bad. It was hurry up and wait with the paperwork. Um, I hired an agent so I wouldn't be spending time arguing with my wife over little details with the paperwork, because I don't think it's always that self-explanatory. I mean, for example, what's a surname? I didn't know what a surname was. I probably still don't know what a surname was, but there was some things on how to fill it out, where she would fill it out with her married name, because you have to fill. We kind of pre-filled out some stuff on the spousal visa, so you're filling it out as if you are married, and so they don't do it like we do. They take their last name becomes the middle name. Well, we don't do that, so I'm concerned that, well, hey, I don't want this to get sent back, and oh, that's the way we do it here. Trust me, that's the way we do it here. Well, I'm not sure. We had little, discussions about things like that. But by and large, having the agent helped us to focus on each other, which we did. Maybe a couple hours in the morning when I was eating breakfast, she'd have me turn on the camera while I was making it, and then I could, run over there and talk to her while something's, not boiling yet, and get all ready, sit down. She'd eat supper. I would eat breakfast. Sometimes I'd feed her, through the screen, that sort of thing. Share the meal through the screen, and then, at bedtime for me, it would be her morning. So we'd get some time in there, and occasionally maybe would have time for a little bit of a Viber chat, either at my first break or maybe right after work. So that was my full-time job. I was working a lot of hours overtime at that time. But other than that, it was my wife. We were married then, so it went well. I mean, I was pretty much working 11 hours a day, replacing somebody that was out on knee replacement, which I need myself, and communicating with Isa. So that went well. Difficult? I don't think so. I mean, you could say to yourself, well, you got all this momentum, it went really good, really fast. We got married. I got back here, and now what? I'm not going to see her. Could things slow down? Could things kind of stall? It didn't, and I'd be interested in what other people say about that. We have different things to talk about now that we were married. So, we're talking about, some different topics than we might have before we knew we were going to get married. I just tried to communicate with her as much as possible. I looked forward to turning my phone on in the morning and, ping, 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 her messages load. And it was all exciting. It was all very exciting. She's not as talkative. I am talkative. Um, Maybe if we weren't as talkative, or if I wasn't, that would be hard. I don't know. I actually have to learn not to talk so much um, around her, because it kind of makes her nervous. But if I'm around somebody that's not talking much at all, that makes me nervous. So fortunately, thank God, Michael, it was not a strain on our relationship at all. So yeah, not really. Um, And where Jay Bud asked a question about difference between early on and now between year one and year four. That's what we've kind of been talking about. Would I do anything different? Kind of answered that along the way. Now, yeah, you need to remember all that she has given up to come and be with you. The culture shock she is experiencing is massive. Now, maybe Cindy talked about that to you a lot, John. My wife really didn't. She's just more, you know, more private, quiet. Maybe she just doesn't feel the need to talk about certain things. Sometimes I feel like I have to coax it out of her. Um, I don't know. But, culture shock, my wife didn't really say much other than it was freezing because she got here on January 11th, 2016. And a few days later, maybe it was a week, we went to the somewhere to get the try to get the social security card, and it was freezing, absolutely freezing. And she's took a couple years to get used to the weather. The culture shock. There's not a lot of Filipinas here where we live, but there's more than you think, more than I was expecting. That has not been an issue. Um, the people she works with, it's different than in the Philippines. A lot of the workers there are young women, just like she was, and they're very happy-go-lucky, easygoing on the job. I'm sure they take their job seriously, but they like to have fun. They just like to be happy. And sometimes you can, find some people that seem to be jaded that you work with here, and I don't know. They just, I don't know, have an axe to grind, or bossy, and not always enjoyable to be with. And I think that was probably the biggest culture thing for her, quite frankly. When you're in the Midwest, people often say how nice people are. And I think that's true of Nebraska. So maybe here there wasn't a lot of culture shock for her. There could have been, John, but I don't really know from what she's told me. Um, Phil's times two Friday come up here in 3 or 4 days. He'll be joined by his better half, his Filipina wife. Current weight 10 to 12 months. So guys, act quickly. Um, if you're in your 50s or 60s, that time is probably going to go by fast. It just seems like there's nothing you can do about slowing time down when you get to be that age. But I think that's what I've heard. In fact, my agent told somebody else that I know that I recommended services to, and I believe he said the same thing. Now, if he said that to me 4 years ago, he was being conservative, because it only took, could have taken 6.5 months if I really wanted to speed that up. But she had some things to take care of, to say goodbye and so on. And I wanted her to do that. I didn't want to just yank her out of the Philippines. So thanks for kind of uh, what's the word, confirming that current weight spousal visa could be in the 10 to 12 month category. We were extremely blessed with a 55-day time frame from NOA 1 to visa in hand. Now, NOA, I don't know what that is, but you had a fiance visa, I believe, right? Phil's the Phoenix. And so I don't know how that works. And nowadays it may be longer than it was back then also. Yeah, name change, meaning the old last name becomes her new middle name. It's important because I was told the officer in Manila will know this. And I was concerned, something with paperwork, we get sent back for some minor detail, and then you kind of have to wait. It gets sitting on somebody's desk, or it gets lost in the whole process, um, get slowed down, and I just didn't want that to happen. But yeah, some of the things she'll know because she's there, and she has people to ask about it, and my agent was able to confirm all that stuff. Also, SS office gave us some grief about that. Other than that, we didn't have an issue. Okay. J. Bud, Cindy has helped me learn the Filipino patience level. I agree. I tell you what, um, John, my wife is well, very patient, and that's one good thing about being married. Your spouse is going to point some things out to you because she's a good woman and she wants you to be a better man. She'll have her ways to show that, and probably very politely, that there's some shortcomings. And I think you need to do the same with her. And, I can be very impatient on the phone with people, especially call centers. And, every time my voice tension level starts to rise, I kind of think about my wife and what she said, and not to get so uptight, because when I listen to her talk on the phone, she's she's always calm. One time we were talking, somebody called, and she answered the phone, and they thought she was some child, and they go, uh, they didn't understand, they didn't, they said, "Is your mother there? Is your mother there?" And Isa says, "No." And she answered it very straightforward, and and didn't sweat it, didn't get upset or anything like that. But she's very calm and very patient on the phone. She acknowledges that you know here you gotta. It's frustrating. You could spend a lot of time on the phone not getting anywhere, just punching in numbers and not talking to a real person. That's so frustrating. Very, very frustrating. And she helps me with that, as I'm sure your wife has helped you as well. Cindy handled Phoenix summers well, but thought they were too short. My wife thinks that the summers here are too hot and hotter than they are in the Philippines, but she's learned to embrace spring and fall. And how can you not? Very, very beautiful weather. 60-second world, hello. Glad to have you here. New viewer, I do believe. Thank you for stopping by. This is kind of a open forum. I do have some kind of negative comments to share from someone, but Jay Bud kicked it off right after the roosters were crowing and got the ball rolling. So kind of been talking about different things that people want to know about. Yeah, I have already prepared my wife that USA is not all unicorns and rainbows. I hope I didn't miss anything here. Yeah, you know what? I should ask my wife what if her expectations have been met, or if there's any real surprises. Um, she seems to just kind of take things in stride, and Filipinas adapt well to their new culture, and so they probably figure, what's the point in complaining? I decided to come here to marry this man, and I know things are going to be different. The homesickness is still tough, but beyond that, I think they have a really strong capacity to adapt to their new country. And yeah, only 55 days until visa. It's at least 3 months until NOA 2 is approved. Another 3 months for NVC. You guys are speaking Tagalog there or something, because we did spousal visa, so it wasn't that kind of terminology. K1 visa, fiance visa. Thought it was Elton John for a minute then. Trevor G. Nam. Trevor G. Nam. Elton John. I don't understand the Elton John reference, to be honest with you. Maybe you should fill me in. I don't want to take too much time to think about it. NOA 1 is the official receiving of the packet. Yeah, 60-second world. Hello from Phoenix. We're chatting about here. Trevor G. Nom is whatever you want to chat about relative to foreigner relationship to a Filipina. We've been talking about initial stages in marriage and progression through year 4 because Phyllis Phoenix and I have both been married about 4 years. Very similar there. We're both in the States. We brought our wives over, one on a fiance visa, the other on me on a spousal visa. And, we can relate to some expected ups and downs, especially early on. You just have to be calm and realize you're marrying somebody from another culture you perhaps don't know nearly as well as you're going to. And so, if you want to talk about anything at all, uh, I'd love to. I'd love to talk about that. Um, I did want to point out some comments. I do get positive comments here, and this is from Simp Males Buying Filipinas, and I had to delete his comment. I let it go, and then I was told to delete it, so I did. So I just wanted to talk about it. I'm not mad or anything like that. Um, but hey, let's talk about this because I can work off of this and we can talk about some things. They say they're referencing me here. I think by their one of their many names as well. At age 58, you have had one girlfriend in your entire life, and now you espouse you are an expert on relationships! Exclamation point. Dotingly Filipinas, you know nothing. Well, I don't think it's true that I know nothing, or I would have a lot of gall to have Love Beyond the Sea, which is about real love, marriage. Real love is hard. We all want love, but love is not really so much feelings as it's action, it's meeting needs, it's sacrifice, and we have to watch some of my videos to pick up on that. But to respond to his question, I'm not an expert on relationships, but I have said before I did try learning about as much as I could for about 30 years. I was single a long time, but I didn't think I was going to be single. What was I, 24 or so, I decided, get serious. Since I never really had heard good things about marriage growing up. Um, I think I think most of my friends, maybe one of them actually had, you know, father, mother there. And I'm just, I never really got the idea marriage was something to really be sought and pursued, and did some stupid things. And so about, 1985 or so, I thought, well, I want to get serious about this. So because I thought, I'm going to find a girlfriend in a couple of weeks and we're going to be married in a year, it's going to be off to the races. Well, you get through the 80s and 90s and 2000s, and you know and you're still not married. It's 2010, 11, 12, 13. I didn't stop trying to learn. It kind of got sickening after a while because there's only so many books and tapes you can listen to. I bought cassette tapes, the things they probably don't even make anymore. Video cassettes, what do they call those? And what they call them, video cassettes maybe. Um, the internet wasn't around then, so I bought books. With the advent of the internet, I was looking at stuff there, ordering books, talking to people, talking to all my pastors, learning and learning, and then going over the whole thing again, and then again, and looking for something new until it felt like, I just wasn't learning anything new because I'd been trying to learn so much. And well, eventually, I got to get married, and I'm just trying to share what I've learned. But no, I didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, I think I'm going to have a channel. I'm very biblical in what I try to say. Why? Because Well, I think it's foolproof. Um, so that doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean it's a formula. Um, but that's what I try to do myself. And when I blow it, I try to learn from that. And without breaking privacy here, to my wife, I want to share what I've done wrong, and what I've done to try to correct it. But I certainly am far from knowing nothing. Now, kind of along those lines, I found out recently that, and some of you guys might remember the name Joshua Harris, who wrote the book around 2000, I Kissed Dating Goodbye. And that was a pretty big deal. He pastored a church, wrote a couple more books. It was a kind of during the purity revolution, um, what do you call it? Courting. I think he was talking about courting and not, true dating as we know it today, because it could be too many things go wrong. And anyway, he was a pretty big picture, or a big guy on the scene, among the relationship advice and singles. And he was only 20 years old when he wrote that book. And I think he got a pretty big following. And just like within the last week, he has announced that he and his wife are divorcing. Sounds like he's renouncing his faith. He's going to have his books pulled, so there will be no more of his books out there. Kind of like a falling away for this man, and it's very sad. Now, I don't know that he would say he was an expert, but he was a leader in this, field of relationships and marriage and helping singles. And I don't know what wrong. It's none of my business what went wrong, but things have completely come unraveled, and that's really really sad to see. And if people think that there's formulas, do this and this will happen. It doesn't work that way. I think you have to be aggressive and go out and look for a wife. I don't see anything wrong with dating. I agreed with him about avoiding intimacy until you got married. But he had a big following, and now he's not even going to be married. And apparently, the things he believed in, he's backing off of. Kind of a strange situation. But I would tell you is I'm no expert either. I do plan on being in it for the long haul, and I want my wife to know that. I'm not saying I necessarily know different things than he did, but I'm going to talk about, I think, what men need to know about. May not be what they're searching about, but we need to talk about behavior and temper and expectations. And I'm going through a series right now about how not to communicate with your Filipina wife. I'm hoping that people will take something away from that. I don't just say, okay, what's hot out there? What do people want to learn about? I want to do videos on what people need to know about, not so much what's popular out there. I have no trouble letting other people make videos on certain things that I just don't feel the need to do. The whole visa process, I don't need to do videos on that. There's people out there that have some really good ones. If somebody is inclined to go find those out. So I just try to focus on the relationships. I want to be into it as much as possible. I want this to endure. I don't want to come back in 5 years or something and people say, "Did you hear Bob's in Love Beyond the Seas channel is down because he's revoking everything he believed in," and so on. And there's going to be challenges. There will be things maybe happen that you weren't planning on. Just, I don't know, could be illness or who knows. And so I just I want to help, through the difficult things. I hope nobody thinks I'm giving the impression that marry a Filipina, everything's fine. Um, because you marry a human being, everything is not going to be fine. You have to smooth things out, and there's certain things you can do to not make things worse. And hopefully, in time, all this can, much of this can come out in my channel. Uh, the irony. Well, yeah, it's really sad. Let me close that. No one is more MGTOW and red pill than me, but a lot of your negative feedback are from jealous guys. Um, and I think, Jay Bud, you're probably right about that. Um, I do think marriage is a wonderful thing, and I'm not here to just to I'm not here to be negative. I should be positive. If I'm talking about marriage, I should be positive. I should be able to speak dogmatically. Now, I'm not saying, I'm an expert. I'm saying that the Bible says certain things that are just true. However, they have to be executed, and that's where it's more challenging. Um, but no, not an expert. But I do want to help, and I do want to keep learning, and hopefully people can learn from this. And so I'm going to be dogmatic, because why teach if you're going to say, well, I think there's a strong likelihood that what you hear in this video will be true. I think I'm 95% sure that what I'm going to tell you today will work. Nobody wants to hear that. So yeah, I think there is some jealousy, and there should be some good jealousy. I was always had a good jealousy for people when I was growing up that had a relationship, and I wondered, well, how in the world did they even get a relationship? It's so hard. Now, I didn't want to covet what they had, but I was jealous that they had someone, because I knew it was a good thing, and that's what I wanted. So I kept persisting, and thankfully, God gave me my eyes about 4 years ago. I had to go through a lot to wait it out, but I didn't throw in the towel. I didn't call it quits. But there were times I wondered, what the point was of continuing to get slugged and punched out and knocked down to the mat, and have to keep getting up off the mat. But now I did, and I got married. A lot of the wounds have been healed, and so I feel like I'm in a position to talk about these things. And I want to believe that what I'm saying is right, and I need to have a certain amount of confidence in that. Doesn't necessarily make me an expert. If anything, marrying a Filipina is more of a challenge than a typical marriage, but the benefits are far above other marriages. John, you would know, you're married to a Filipina. I had not been married before. So, just today I was thinking maybe I should do a video one of these days on how I think it would have gone, knowing that what I know, I'm married to a Filipina. If I had married maybe somebody that was the same age as me and from here, I don't know. I don't even want to think about that, because I'm into my wife and her situation and us and our future. So it can be more of a challenge. Um, Culturally, if you have an age gap, you probably have a generation gap. I've done a video on that at the suggestion of JBud 5000. I think that video for me has done pretty good. Generation gap issues, maybe some things you don't quite think about with the age gap situation, which is common when foreigners, Westerners, want to marry a Filipina. There are benefits in my marriage. My wife, like many Filipinas, loves to take care of the house, which I guess is kind of a subliminal thing when you look at the background here, which is our basement. And, it looks neat and organized. That's the way Isa likes things. If I showed you the uh, storage room, it would look the same way. If we went upstairs and showed you upstairs, the kitchen, the pantry, it would look the same way. The garage even looks clean. Isa's car has got a lot of stuff in it, but it's all organized, and I appreciate that. It's no small thing with me. I hate clutter. I really do. And fortunately, my wife doesn't like clutter either. She's very neat. She puts stuff back where she gets it, and yeah, I like that. She's a good cook. She's a good lover. She works very hard, um, 50 to 60 hours a week. And when she feels the need to slow it down, her body will tell her she needs to slow down. I tell her, hey, don't work so much overtime, or, don't go in today. Only go in 1 week or 1 day when you got these 3 days off instead of two. We'll be okay. Just kind of pace yourself. You got to pace yourself with overtime. And I think six hours a week is really good, but she's got 12-hour shifts, and she's done two 12-hour more shifts for overtime when she had 3 days off. But she's younger, so she can do it. I wouldn't. Maybe I could have done it a long time ago. She's been an excellent wife. She's been kind of the prototypical Filipina in those ways. She's cares about how she looks. She cares about how her husband looks. She makes good food. She cares about the impression I make. So she wants me to eat well and look well, because why? Because people say, oh, his wife, she doesn't care about her husband. She doesn't dress him right. He goes to work with wrinkled shirts. She doesn't care. Or look at the food he's eating. His wife doesn't care to fix him. And some of you guys will be able to relate to that too, I'm sure. Michael and Heidi, I wasn't Christian for 40 years of my life, following the world and what American society is. Death, trying to do it in your own strength and not centered on faith, will never work. And that's true. And if your wife has the same foundation, then that is certainly going to help. That's one of the ways. I said last week, I think, have a short list. The longer the list you have, the harder it's going to be to get married. However, that short list needs to be must-haves. Don't have pages of must-haves, because that's not realistic, and it will just make it impossible to find somebody. Many physical and emotional scars, two failed marriages to show for it. So, yeah, in your case, you can compare that to your Filipina wife and see what the difference is. At the end of the day, it's a guy and girl trying to live together, either making each other happy or driving each other crazy. And that takes conscious, concerted effort, Jay Bud. Absolutely. And why make each other crazy? They should look to make each other happy. What a harmonious thing that is. And it may be that one of the two is always kind of going to be ahead of the other as far as wanting to show affection or wanting to show how important the other person is. And yeah, that's fine. As long as there's some back and forth and some reciprocation, and you're trying to make each other happy. You're interested in what the other person needs to be happy. And I think you find a mature Filipina, she's going to be more mature as the marriage goes on, if you treat her well. Tom and Ruth, Philippine Adventures. Hello, hello, hello. I think everyone's doing okay. John just set his alarm for 7 a.m. Philippines. I got home from work, got only one break, had to work late. don't feel well, kind of dizzy. But sometimes doing this live stream kind of makes me forget about that for a while. Put the toilet seat down and rolled it up the toothpaste tube. Yeah, not rocket science. Yeah, I know. I didn't squeeze from the bottom of the tube. My wife does. In fact, she taught me this trick. She'll roll it up, from the bottom, and then just keep rolling it and rolling it and rolling it. And then when she gets all the way to the top, then she'll get scissors and cut that top part off, and then it exposes another 3 or 4 days of toothpaste. So man, she really stretches that out. And yeah, she does want me to put the toilet seat down, but I think that's so things don't fall into it, because she built a nice little stand with her skills that she has and set it up behind the toilet to give us more room. And if you're not careful, I suppose something could fall down, but we don't really have arguments about that. You just woke up too? Well, I'm glad you're here, Tom. And I've been feeling bad since November. In fact, if I could, I would just retire, but I can't. Um, got some medical issues, got my tests back, a whole bunch of blood tests. We'll keep doing it. I think there's some positive signs in there, even though some of the results are still terrible. But there's other things you can look for in blood that indicates that things might be about to change. There's certain precursors, and I know it's going to take a long time if I get better, and maybe I won't, but I certainly hope I do. But it's going to take time, and my knee is just about to fall apart, and I know I need it replaced. I'm only 57 and a half. I'd like to wait till I'm 60. Rooster grease isn't working. The what do you call it? I had a ton of these injections of cortisone, isn't working. It's just needs to be replaced. And when you're on your feet all day, and sometimes you don't even want to walk, but you have to. And I don't know why I'm getting dizzy. I really don't. Sometimes when I sit here for a long time, I get dizzy. So I'm kind of getting a little nervous about that. But just kind of opening up here, anything anyone wants to talk about. But I did want to talk about some comments here. And this guy mentioned, your Filipina is young and has strong sexual needs that I cannot fulfill. You cannot produce a child, so you are finished. The jury is still out on whether or not we will be able to have a child. Um, it's still possible. It really is. It really is. And that would not shock me. I'm more worried about possibility of, what do you call it? Not side effects, but when an older man is the father, there's some things that can go wrong, but I've seen it, say it's not necessarily, you can't prove it be from the older man or the woman. Sometimes you just don't know. I'm more concerned about that than it actually happening, because I think it can happen. And not being able to produce a child is not finishing me, and wouldn't finish other guys either, because that's something you want to talk about before you get married. But I know my wife is content if I can give her a baby. And if I can't, I can't. I'm trying. I think that helps. Does she want one? Sure. All Filipinas. I mean, that's just normal. Want one. And I would like to give her one. Don't know. But she's not going to leave me because of that. I do like his point. I think it's very salient about sexual needs of a younger Filipina. This doesn't get as much attention as it should. And I do bring this up before, and so I won't spend a whole lot of time on it. But, older foreigner marries a younger Filipina. He's thinking, wow, she's beautiful. I can have sex longer, before I die. Well, he's not in his prime, and she is or will be. And that's, that's something that's just a practical consideration. because regardless of foreigner, Filipina, regardless of ages, each person owes the other person sexual satisfaction. And that's a biblical concept from 1 Corinthians 7. Render unto each other the due benevolence, which literally is debt. And each person owes the other person um, to meet that need. And so another way to look at it is sex is for the other person. In other words, can't say no or don't say no. It's not helpful to say no. And if that's your philosophy, then you got a younger woman, um, you know, you're going to have to, are you capable of doing that to the degree that she needs? Is it's just a simple, you know, uh, issue that you should you should know about. It's just common sense. Yeah, your younger Filipina has needs too. Um, so yeah, those you have to do what you can to meet them. And if you are unable to for some reason, then that's just one of those sensitive things that needs to be talked about. Absolutely. Yeah, the toilet seat was never an issue growing up in the provinces. It didn't bother her. Well, sometimes they don't even have toilet seats in the Philippines. When I saw, they didn't have not just that cover that you sit on, if you're reading something, I guess, but the thing that's underneath that. Sometimes they don't even have that, and it's like, wow, how do people go when they don't have that? So they're strong, they're tough. They don't need toilet seats. You know, they're fine. The white flour. I think I missed another thing, John. You might have said. I can't always keep up with this. Sometimes I just lose my place. White flour. The only white flour I know about is the kind she bakes with. So you're probably not talking about that. John, you might need to tell me about that. So yeah, this guy who seems like an antagonist with some of his comments, I think he's intelligent. I think he knows some things, and this is certainly true. But no, not being able to give your Filipina a child is not going to end the relationship. But again, of course, it brings up that you should talk about this. Um, we really didn't. I guess that's something that Jay Bud mentioned earlier. Um, would I have done things different? I suppose I would have emphasized the importance of having a child early on. I just, when you get married, that at warp speed, you don't always cover everything, and I did want to just cover the basic fundamentals and go from there. Um, just have the foundation. Walls didn't need to be painted, didn't have electricity in necessarily, just the bare necessities, and then build it from there, which is what we kind of did. But we had a strong foundation. And so, yeah, you have all these aches and pains, and you need to make an appointment for sex. But what they're referring to there is not, do I have an appointment, flipping through here to see when we're going to be intimate. What I was referring to was, and many marriage counselors, relationship, well, especially marriage, because that's what I'm concerned about the most, will tell you um, to if you're both working, especially if you got kids, you got other responsibilities, um, spontaneity with relations probably isn't going to happen. If it does, that's great. But the busier you are, the more hours you work, the more tired you get, the more responsibilities you have. Um, especially when maybe the woman is not as interested. I've even heard it recommended by a marriage expert, is actually a sex expert, sexpert, I guess, that let her know there's a few days a week. You're not going to ask her. You're not going to bother her for it. That way, she doesn't have to sweat it, and then she'll be more prepared for those times when she knows that you know can't keep delaying it. It's just another way of doing things. Um, but yeah, spontaneity. I don't know. Most of us, I think, are. If you're both working, you're just too busy for that. Anybody, let me know if you disagree with that. White flour for your needs. An ointment is very common in Filipinos. They use it for everything. No, John, thank you for that. White flour, no, but what's that stuff in the little orange bottle? It kind of has an orange scent to it. Um, I know when I was had this terrible sore throat when we were there. I got to delete some stuff here. I don't want. Um, I can't. You. I mean, they even mixed it in water for me, and they put it on. I even drank it, in water. I can't. I could get up and show you what it was, but I don't want to leave here. Um, but I know my wife's got about 8 or 9 bottles somewhere in the bedroom. It's a common treatment. I just can't think of the name, but yeah, it's kind of one of those cure-all type of things. Uh, she's got some ointments, but I don't know if they're white flour. I think they're just stuff that we bought. But I can ask her about that. So and they go on to talk about because she works a different shift, cheating on me at her lunch break, um, and it's hard for me. I'm not a psychologist. It's hard for me to know you know how serious this man is. I do like psychology. I think part of his thing is he really believes what he's saying, and maybe because he's seen it a lot in the past, maybe he's experienced it himself. I don't know. Um, but those are not things that happen to everybody. And timing on your time off is certainly suspect. Paperwork you fill out is subjective, easily approved. Not anymore. Not anymore. Uh, my doctor wanted 3 more months off. I couldn't get it. In fact, he was told, don't even bother. In so many words, don't even bother. Um, and I think, well, yeah, anymore. Of course, insurance companies, they want to pay out claims if they don't think they have to. And not that it was going to cost $500,000 or something, but it's just getting more difficult with dealing with insurance. People that work in the doctor's offices know this, and they don't like dealing with insurance either. But in my case, you miss 3 months of work. You don't just say, "Hey, I'm not feeling well. See you in 3 months." No, you got to have lots of paperwork. You have to release anything, or they won't cover it or allow it, and they still might not allow it, even though they got to look at all your records and doctor's notes and test results and evaluations and so on. You got to release all that. They still might not let you have it. So yeah, my wife wants me to stop working. That's just impractical from a financial standpoint, although I wish I could, or just sleep for 6 months, and I think that would heal me up somewhat. But it's just not time to do that. I'm going to try to get through another 4.5 years or so and retire 62, and maybe we move the Philippines down and start drawing Social Security. And that's kind of the plan that we were looking at. But no, I wasn't staying home to spy on my wife, although I'm sure people have done that. Oh, and then he mentions your Filipinous family is in the Philippines isn't worried about conserving your electric bill there, and I hope they're not. They don't have air conditioning. We did buy them some portable coolers. We can always buy more. When I was there, I usually got the fan. They didn't seem to need a fan. I don't know how. I thought it was hot. even indoors. I thought it was hot unless you're at the mall, of course. So yeah, they can run as much electricity as they need. I bought a big screen TV for them to watch, and you know, it's a TV, but we bought some other appliances too. They're not used to probably. And we bought an oven, um, clothes washer. They're a little bit different over there, not as big. So that's okay. My wife pays the electric bill, so um, that's what she takes care of. So no big deal for the electricity. We'll take care of that. And before I go on to his next point, which I think is a good one, um, learning curve in marriage. It's little things like these that come out in the first year. Yeah, you gotta be careful first in the first year. Um, Michael and Heidi, when you seek a worldly woman in America, you have a 100% chance of having the result this guy describes. Um, yeah, be the one you're looking for. Be the one you're looking for is looking for. Um, and they say, be the right person for the right person in the right time, God's right time. You can focus on yourself, making yourself more attractive to this person someday. And I agree, you attract the person that you are. And that's why I think men who are honest about relationships, I mean, about committing to a relationship and not using a Filipina, I think they're more likely to find somebody that is not interested in using them either. So I would agree with that. Learning about white flour and Vicks. What a white lady and dwindies are. Dwindies. Things that would never come out in conversation because they're too foreign and probably never heard of. Yeah, I would agree with that. Just put in a hot shower and Papa won't use it. He likes the cold showers. Yeah, well, they haven't used. I'm not sure they've used our stove. Um, I'm kind of a little afraid about using a gas stove myself. I just like electricity. Um, yeah, us Westerners, we like our hot water, and I think probably when we're there permanently, we'll put in one of those hot water heater things that they're not like what we have here, and maybe they'll even be better then. But I would like hot water. I can't imagine. I mean, when we stayed in the condos before we had our house built, often the water was cold. And you think it's so hot out there, you'd love coming in, taking a cold shower, but it never worked that way for me. I still want a weird, kind of weird. I still want a warm shower. So good for you for putting that in there and thinking about them. Maybe one day he'll appreciate it. But again, he's lived without it, probably lived without the air con as well. And this man points out, you own nothing in the Philippines. Isa owns it all, and that is true. I just told my wife the other day, I'm not concerned about her, uh, you know, leaving me or anything. What happens if something happens to her? She's driving around or gets hit by a jeepney or a scooter or gets sick or something. Um, you know, I'd like to think they would take care of me, but that's just the way it is. It's right. I own nothing in the Philippines. That is, if that's something that's really bothersome to someone, they might not want to, try to build a house in the Philippines. We just built a house. We just furnished it, and I have other plans for things in the Philippines before I die, and I understand I won't own land and houses and stuff like that. Um, but if you trust the person you're with and you're going to go to a place that you think will be different, less stress free, hopefully, less hurried, lower standard of living, then I think if you trust your spouse, there's absolutely nothing to worry about. But it's true. Foreigners should know that. You build a nice house, and uh, I saw a video of a guy building a house. I don't know if it's done. Maybe it is, but man, it's going to be like 3 stories, and I think it might cost over 200,000 USD. That's what, 10 million pesos in the Philippines. Well, I guess he's not concerned about that either, because it will be in his wife's name, I'm sure. If you trust your spouse, then it's nothing to be concerned about. No AC aircon here, but a fan at night is enough. I wish. I just don't see it. I think that cooler. I was about some portable coolers, and like heaters, but they blow out cool air. Probably rotate around. That's what I'll be using. It's not a fan. It's actually some portable coolers. Um, Hopefully they're using that. Um, and then he mentions here that my channel sucks, and that's why nobody watches. Um, for nobody watching, this this individual sure hangs on about every word. I think he either has a photographic memory, or he cares to remember what I say. Um, so anyway, um, actually, the subscribers, I was kind of in a rut a couple months ago. I'm not sure why. Um, I kind of got to 252, and it just wasn't wasn't moving. And I don't know. Now it's 272. I'm very grateful for that. For all 272 people, I hope they're learning. I hope they'll stick around, and hope they understand the purpose of Love Beyond the Sea is, it's not, my name isn't in it, my wife's name isn't in it, the United States, the Philippines isn't in it. It's mostly about my love beyond the sea. That's where I found it. It's where I had to go to find it. It's where my wife found hers, and I like the sound of it, and so that's why I called it that. And but 25, almost 25,000 views now, and it's gone slower than I wanted to, of course. But hey, I'm impatient like anybody else, and I understand there's probably some built-in, I don't know, obstacles, hurdles, impediments that make it a little bit harder for this thing for me to take off. Um, despite my incredible hairstyle that he always talks about, I can't get views just on my hair. So I'm joking, of course. I have a dry sense of humor. Um, but, uh, it's just, I'm just going to keep going. If it takes 1,000 videos to get 1,000 subscribers, just going to keep going. I think being in the Philippines certainly will help coming up later in the year. And if we retire there, I think that can help. But it's about relationships, and that's not always exciting. That's not always what people are looking to hear. But sooner or later, I think once they get married, they'll want to know some of these things, and so that's what I want to do. Uh, Michael and Heidi, Bob, I want to say to men listening, no matter what age, I was just like this guy. Till your heart changes, nothing will change, and this requires faith in God. Um, so, Michael, are you referring to? Oh, okay. You're probably referring to the man that goes by Simp Males Buying Filipinas or something like that. Um, well, I don't have any resentment against somebody wanting to communicate with me. Um, I think the things they say certainly other people believe, and if I it's something that needs to be talked about. There are stereotypes. There are things that people say because they've read it so much, they heard it so much, it must be true. Um, But no, there are lots of good marriages. I don't get the impression the Philam couples we know are going to break up. There's so many more. They don't have YouTube channels, and of course, the negativity always seems to sell. The train wrecks sell, but there's lots of good marriages. There's channels that pop up here and there, and there's probably a lot more than I even know about. And so I'll just keep trying to say what I believe is true. And maybe this gentleman's made a lot of the same mistakes. Maybe he thinks the wheels are going to fall off for me. Um, I don't think that's the case. If something comes up, I think it's my job to figure out what to do differently, what to do better, what to do more, what to do less, to get advice, um, to try to make it work. Maureen, Michelle, and Ken, Magandangu Maga, um, where you are. Phil's is out there too. It's 7:21 p.m. where I am in the United States. Thank you for stopping by, Maureen, Michelle. I'm glad I haven't scared you off or anything like that. Um, I know you got some good advice, I think, from several of us. The last time, was it last week or the week before? I don't know. Can't keep up with things. Time goes by so fast. But I'm glad you're here, and I do hope, and I did pray for you and your American boyfriend, because I do care. I mean, I've been in the Philippines 3 times. I've learned a lot since I was there. All I was focused on was my wife. I didn't even know much about the Philippines. Didn't even know much about scamming and all kinds of stuff. And I've been learning since I got back. Um, but I know there's sincere foreigners and there's insincere foreigners. I don't want to judge any foreigner. Um, but again, last week we talked about in the midst of the hour and 44 live stream was ways that a Filipina can tell that a foreigner Western boyfriend is serious about her. And maybe sometime this week I'll do an upload, much shorter, condensed, of course. Just for men, how you can show the Filipina that you're communicating with that you are serious about her. And so I appreciate you for you know being mature and accepting that advice. What you do with it is up to you. I always encourage you and other Filipinas to find other Filipinas to talk to, some that are older, more mature, that can help you see things. I can maybe help you, and some people here can help you with how things work over here with men, but nobody knows Filipinas better, and I'm sure the Filipinas, older Filipinas, have some savvy about them too, and they can help women out like Maureen, Michelle, and Ken. Uh, no resentment at all. Wanted to share. Um, so yeah, I don't have anything against anybody here. I mean, may have to block somebody once in a while, but that's if they get carried away. But everybody is free to have an opinion on my channel. I am thrilled that there's 272 people. Some people's goes slower, some people goes faster, and I'll just accept it for what it is and keep trying to help and not try to get distracted by you know just trying to be overly dramatic or something like that. So, and then he says, you remind me of a seventh grade science teacher reading from a script to his class. Well, actually, all of the YouTube content creators, I think, would suggest not winging it, having a script, because if you have a topic and you just start talking, it's very easy to forget, what you wanted to say. It's very frustrating to get done and say, man, I knew I had about 2 things I wanted to say and I just forgot. So it's just very easy. Turn on the camera, start talking, and then just lose your train of thought, forget about something, get distracted. So by writing this out, what I do is I turn on music. The music maybe stimulates memories or moods, takes me back to a certain time, or relaxes me, picks me up, whatever. And that kind of helps me write out things. And that way, when I actually say it, I've put some thought into it, and maybe I've changed it. And maybe I changed it again as I read through it another time. And that way, hopefully, even though it might be, I'm trying to make them around 10 minutes, the uploads. But if it goes longer than that, then hopefully, I haven't wasted a lot of time with what I've said because I've had the chance to think it all out. So another fine comment here: you are a simp and a sellout to men all over the world with your suck up approach to your to your almighty mystical Filipina. Well, I do plan on doing a video about am I a simp? We'll get into that one of these days. I just have to have time to tape it. And I've got like 150 others written and about 60 more ideas. And I work 6 days a week, so I have to have time to do that. And sometimes I prioritize one over another, and like I'm doing here today with these notes. And I'm not offended by anything here. I think there's things people can learn from it. So no, I am a man who wants to please his wife. I want her to have a better life, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. I care for her. I want her to be happy. I want to make her dreams come true. And so, as I said to her before we married, I want to defer to her whenever possible. Doesn't mean she's always going to get her way, and she knows that. She's experienced that. I do want to be lenient, but a simp is someone that is afraid of saying no, no, can't do that, and here's why: can't do that. I don't think that's best. A simp is afraid to tell his wife, look, I know this is what you want. I know this is what other people are doing that I know other people are telling you to do this. I know people are telling your husband is wrong. But here's why I'm right. I believe, and here's why we have to do this. I simply, we just have to do it this way, and just whatever happens, happens. But that shouldn't happen very often if your Filipina is, mature and and has some desire to do what her husband says. And I did a video on submission. It's actually a live stream, not a topic you hear a lot about, but I just wanted to make the point there that you can go back, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 videos, and what type of environment for the man to make so that submission is easier. Because I think most women realize, probably even intuitively, that the husband is kind of in charge, and hopefully he is a leader, and his wife will follow him. It may grow in time. I don't think any woman wants to just wrangle and argue and fight with her husband. Um, but there are times when he just has to say, look, I've explained it the best I can why this is not in our best interest or your best interest. We can't do that. And but a simp would never do that. A simp is always afraid of losing his wife. But I think if you're a strong leader, you're confident that when you do things the right way, she's going to eventually yield to that and understand that if you're treating her right, treating her good, and she can see that you're trying to be unselfish, and I think a good woman won't try to take advantage of that. And she knows she can't always, it's not carte blanche, do whatever you want. Here's a blank check. I don't care. Well, I do care, and what I think is best for her and for us isn't always the same thing she believes. And that's totally normal. in relationships. So being her head does not mean I drag her around by the hair and control her and tell her what to do. It's more about influencing and earning her respect and so on. You'd have to just watch the live stream. It's not very long. It's very concise and an example of a good way to script things out and just cover exactly what I want to cover in a minimum amount of time. Bullet points work well, are a good compromise. You sound spontaneous and natural. Make sure to get all your points in. If I could, I would, you know, and some people probably do have, big boards, either those marker boards or cardboard, put them on a stand and write their points really big. You can't tell what they're looking at. So whatever you have to do, whether it's bullet points or something, yes, you want to sound natural. That's why I like doing the lives because I may not always remember looking into the camera. I tend to look at straight ahead where it looks like I'm talking to myself. Um, but I like doing that. But I like, hopefully after 4 years of marriage now, I can just open it up and let people talk about stuff. Now that's funny. Simp sellout. Now I laugh at these guys because I was one of them and they live a life of loneliness, anger, and bitterness. I like somebody used the term simpanzee. I wish I had coined that phrase. Am I a simpanzee? Um, Getting some comments here from some fellow YouTubers, which is always nice. That was from somebody I'd like to visit on our vacation coming up later this year because they live in the area. That would be pretty cool. There's actually a couple people I'd like to be able to visit. We'll have to get a car to see one of them then. One of them though. So yeah, a simp. Um, I think yeah, I'm not. No, wanting to your wife to be happy, doing whatever you can to make her happy. I just think that's a wise thing to do. I don't think it's being a simpanzee or a simp. Um, Not at all. So I don't consider myself that. And if I come across as wanting to be overly generous to her, that's probably because I am. So the other part I probably shouldn't say because I don't want to get any kind of warnings. But he's talking to us about his sexual prowess and um, and how he needs no appointment necessary. That's great, you know. Uh, More power to anyone if things are going well there. Uh, Chimpanzee, is that a chimpanzee emoticon there? I really can't tell. It's just too small. So anyway, that's good for him. No appointment necessary. Probably indicative of having more time on his hands. And there's nothing wrong with having more time on his hands. People go to the Philippines to retire, so they're not doing the daily grind all the time. And I still have, I think, 4.5 more years of the daily grind, and it's getting a little bit more difficult. Um, but my wife has been very understanding. Again, I mean, this is just wonderful of her. She knows things are tough right now, but she doesn't complain. She tries to be encouraging. She tries to handle it in a mature way. And I have heard other foreigners, Westerners, say the same thing about their Filipinas. They're realistic. Um, Not that I'm like 70 years old and falling apart. I have my issues, and like I said, she'd rather I just quit working, and I'd love to, but I just can't do that. Uh, yeah, make sure you get that hot shower, John, and I appreciate you being here. Always do. I hope your vacation goes well I'm glad Cindy will be there soon with you. Absolutely. So, anyway, the last thing here, I guess I was gonna say it, but I can't. Something about me not being a real man, not getting the job done, and something about a three-way something or other. So very funny or very not funny. Nevertheless, um, there were some things in there that I think I wanted to actually discuss, and I hope people can learn from that. So, um, if anyone would like to say anything else before I hit the shower or pass out, whichever comes first, we can certainly do that. So this was just an open forum, and maybe we'll be doing this again in the future, where if there's some burning question, you saw a video from someone else about a topic and you want to ask me about it, um, from my perspective, I would certainly enjoy doing that. So everybody that gave me some of your time tonight, I greatly appreciate that. Um, I hope if you haven't, that you would subscribe to this channel, Love Beyond the Sea, and feel free to share these videos, make some comments later on, and I appreciate the dialogue here tonight. That's really what I would like to see in the future. So thank you everybody for joining. I hope you got something out of this, and I'm undecided about next time, um, if I will do a live stream, because my wife won't be working that day unless she decides to. So I will say good night for now. Thanks for being here. And this is Bob on Love Beyond the Sea.